What's happening, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of An American in Poland. I'm Kenny. Glad to have you here. So before we get started with this one, I have to warn you, this is going to piss a lot of people off. A lot of these points can be said about every country in the world. But I was asked to kind of come up with a list of things that I don't necessarily like about Poland. And honestly, this was not that easy. It's not like I'm like, oh, Poland's, if you've watched my channel, you know that I absolutely love Poland, and I'm super proud that this is my home. So this was not an easy list, but there are some things that are a little different here that I do find frustrating from time to time. And the longer that I've lived here, the more kind of normalized they've become. So it's not necessarily as strange for me as it was when I first came here. So number one thing on the list that I don't like dealing with here in Poland is the government. Bureaucracy here is still stuck in the PRL. I find it really frustrating when I have to do anything like with the Department of Foreigners or even the local urgent, and especially if they have to communicate with each other. Wow, is it frustrating. For example, one office will want an original of some paperwork, but so does another office. But in order, you only get one original. And so to get other originals, you have to refile and refile. And it's super, super frustrating that so much difficulty goes into filling paperwork out here and dealing with the government that there actually has become a niche market. Like, for example, you have brokers that will register your car for you because dealing with just something as simple as registering a car is so difficult because of the government and the bureaucracy. So, yeah, that's my number one. Another thing that I found really kind of off-putting when I first came here is the I have to be first mentality. Whether it's while you're driving on the road or you're waiting in a grocery store line or whatever, it's like this constant need to be, I have to be first. And like, for example, if you're standing in line at the grocery store and you leave the littlest bit of space between you and the guy next to you or in front of you, Bob's just zooming in and then looks at you like, what? I belong here, you know? And I think some of this, once again, stems back from, the PRL, when people, you had to be assertive, you had to be pushy in order to get goods. You don't see this as frequently with the younger generations, but the older generation is very, very much that way. Holidays. So the problem here is the United States is way over the top when it comes to holidays. And everything is big and spectacular and bombastic. Poland tends to take a much more tempered view of their holidays, and they're just kind of bleak for me. Like I said, this is one of those that actually is kind of changing for me over time, and I've just come to accept it. But yeah, it's not like, not everything's some giant monumental celebration, and that's okay. It's just different. A lot of Poles will probably agree with me on this next one, but it's road care, especially in the winter. I have never lived anywhere that does a more horrible job of taking care of the roads in the wintertime than Poland. If you guys have been watching my channel, you know I'm from the mountains in the United States. We get a lot of snow. It's very common for us to get half a meter of snow in one storm. And yet our roads, like say the snowstorm finishes by morning, by noon or maybe 1, 2 o'clock, the roads are clear. You know, it's wet pavement, or dry, depending on the weather, but it's never like it is here in Poland. My road here, up until this last storm, because a lot of people complained, was solid ice for 2 weeks. They never put a bit of salt down. They never plowed it. It was packed by vehicles. What's interesting is when you see the comments on Facebook on this one, they kind of go either way. There's people complaining about it and they're like, this is ridiculous. We pay good money to have the roads taken care of and the government's doing nothing. Then you see the other people that are saying, oh, well, if you don't like it, then move. Or learn how to drive. You're just an idiot. It doesn't know how to drive. So it's kind of a polarizing thing. But I will say, you know, the perfect example is when you go to the border, and you get down, and I'm not even going to talk about Germany because Germany is a different thing. But you go down south and you go to the border of Slovakia or Czech. It's like night and day. When you cross that border, it could be a raging snowstorm on both sides in both countries. You get to the border and the roads are clear in Slovakia. The roads are clear in Czech Republic. And in Poland, they haven't been touched. So yeah, this is one of those, you know, that I think every Pole should get on board with this and be frustrated with their government on this one, because it is a dangerous thing. And you know, Poles spend a lot of money on taxes when it comes to fuel and road maintenance and everything else. They should be getting their money's worth. So this one is more anecdotal, but I've had quite a few experiences like this, in which if I'm going to buy something, you know, from a private sale, you know, not a big business, but like if I go to the local lumber mill or if I'm dealing with a local farmer, if they don't know that I'm American, it's one price. But if they find out that I'm not Polish, the price goes up. And this frustrates the hell out of me. You know, so I'm very cautious when I go to these different smaller businesses to make sure that I only speak Polish, because I have experienced that, you know, kind of duality in pricing. And it's pretty common. You see it a lot with like used cars and, you know, buying used cars, or it's mostly the small private sales stuff where it can kind of be hidden, I guess. But I've had this experience many, many times. So I'm not sure if any of the other expats that watch my channel have had this kind of experience. If you have, drop a comment. Or maybe it's just, you know, I've had bad luck. Now, this one is a big thing that I find frustrating for me. And it is kind of a cultural difference. But Poles love to complain. It's like a national pastime. And they tend to be very jealous people and judgmental of other people's happiness. You know, it's like, what have you got to be happy about? And I guess for me, I find that frustrating. You know, I mean, there are so many words in Polish that are, you know, literally designed to kind of question somebody's success. Are they worthy of it? You know, you've got Świniak, Kombinator, La Variant, Schuler, Schwindlarz. You know, all of these have negative connotations as to why a person doesn't deserve to be successful or doesn't deserve to be happy. And And this Polish idea that if you're happy in public, that you're either drunk or crazy, I I have a real problem with that, because, you know, for them, for the Poles, they think that it's, you know, it's fake. But, you know, I'm pretty comfortable with, as I'm passing, you know, somebody in the street and we make eye contact, I smile and nod. It's not that I'm being fake with them. It's a way to say, yeah, everything's good. You know, you can feel comfortable around me. And like, for example, when, you know, you're building something new at, you know, either in your garden or at your house or whatever, you know, the neighbors will all talk and they'll, you know, oh, well, wonder where the money came for that. And, you know, it's always this grand conspiracy. Yeah, it's something that's very, very different here. You know, I've watched a lot of other channels where they've talked about, you know, that they have neighbors or friends that have, you know, gone and bought cars and weren't able to, you know, drive them right away because they were afraid their neighbors would be jealous and might damage the car. And, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say negative against Polish jealousy, but it's a thing. And finally, this one here really surprised me, but I've gained more experience with this over time, and identity is a big deal for Poles. So, and they don't want the rest of the, you know, anyone else looking at them in a negative way. And what made me come up with this is over Christmas, my family here was watching 1670. It's a satire based on a fake nobleman in the year 1670. He's going to be the most famous Jan Pavel of all time, you know, and it's obvious satire. But the men in the family were so offended. And they're like, well, people are going to watch this and they're going to think this is what Poles are like. And, you know, and I was just, it blew my mind. And I've talked to a few other people, you know, from outside of the family about this show, and it's pretty consistent that, oh, well, it's going to show Poland in a bad light. And American comedy, British comedy for sure, deals in satire a ton. And nobody thinks that, oh, well, this is how the rest of the world is going to perceive us. Come on. You know? By the way, if you haven't watched 1670, it is hilarious. Obvious satire. It is not historical in any way other than the look of the village and the clothing. But it is just a comedy, and it is worth watching. Just have fun with yourselves. Don't take yourself so seriously, because nobody else does. Nobody's going to look at a show like this and be like, oh, that's how Poland is, you know? Just enjoy it for what it is. Simple fun, and go from there. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching this video. Please don't get too angry with me. Like I said, I really had to think about the things that I don't like about Poland, because for the most part, I love this country. You know, there's very little that I don't like. There's only a few things here. But anyways, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure that you give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, make sure you got notifications turned on so that next time I put out a video, you get notified. Na razie, dzięki bardzo. Thanks again for spending your time with me here on An American in Poland, and we'll see you soon.